Welcome back. We are joined by Lieutenant Colonel Daniel Davis, a 4 times combat veteran and host of the very popular Daniel Davis Deep Dive YouTube show. And I will leave a link in the description. So thank you for coming back on. We only spoke a few days ago. You were warning that this war was coming, and well, sadly, you were right as usual. Um, but as this war have now gone on for 2 days, it doesn't seem to go as planned. I mean, all sides have to put on a brave face, I guess, and claim success in any war. But over the past 2 days, we have seen a lot of chaos, and it's very hard to suggest that this was intended. Do you see any strategic miscalculation on the side of the United States, or was this such a cost that they were prepared to absorb?
It is. It's a major miscalculation, but unfortunately, it was one that was self-evident before it ever started. All the signs were in place. You mentioned that I saw this coming and called it. It frankly wasn't that hard to me because the signs that we were giving were made it really clear that absent an 11th hour change of mind by Trump, which was always possible, so I always left some room for that. But based on the movement of the types of military equipment and gear, and the statements that were made and where the forces were, it looked to me like, because I've been through this, I've lived it once, well, twice really, as a member of an armed force, watching this exact same kind of buildup in the United States. And then one of the reasons I was so effective in calling the Russian war when it broke out in 2022, because remember, most people thought, oh, it's just going to be another buildup. Russians aren't really going to do that. They're going to posture. But I said, no, this one is fundamentally different for the same reason as the other two that I saw. And then now that this was played out, when you see the types of force that Russia had amassed in, it wasn't just demonstration forces. They had everything they need with all the enablers. They had the logistics. They had the medical support. They had lots of things to sustain combat operations, and they were all being parked forward, just like what I went through when I myself was part of that deploying force. And so I said, no, this is something that is being pre-positioned to use. And I wrote that extensively before the case. So, you couldn't come back and just say, well, you called it later. But that's why I was so confident this one, for the same reasons. Just when it was the air logistics, it was the refueling capabilities, it was the C-17s, the C-5 transport, the massive number of them, like 50% of our entire inventory. And then, of course, the large number of fighter jets and the aircraft carrier strike groups and all that. When you look at all that, it's like, no, this is being designed for use. This is not pressure. This is not trying to convince anybody to reach an outcome, because they already were. That was kind of the linchpin to me that kind of convinced me. Iran already was willing to have a negotiation. And in fact, I think history is going to look back and say, if there was a central moment where our failure was crystallized, it's on the night before, when the foreign minister from Oman, I believe it was on a Friday night, came and said on a US CBS News and said he had agreed to the Iranian negotiator to make some profound submissions and changes and concessions that they wanted in the nuclear agreement. They would not do any reprocessing, zero, which they had said wasn't even on the table before. And then they said the stockpiles they would get rid of that too. And then they said at least on the table were the long-range missiles and the proxy forces, which heretofore had not even been on the table. They said, we'll do that later, but let's get the nuclear part first. It was a golden opportunity for the Trump administration. If that's what they wanted, they had it in their hand. And when he is attacked the next morning, then that made it very clear that none of this was ever about negotiations. It was always about war. Well, now then, we're on the situation to where we have started something that we can't finish. And I don't remember, maybe it's what you and I talked about last time. My big frustration was, this is a war you can't win. You're setting about unattainable military objectives. And when President Trump came out, early in the morning that Saturday at Mar-a-Lago, he put out all the objectives for this, and I just was cringing, because I'm like, unless the Iranian side does the unexpected and just collapses and crumbles, just out of fear and whatever, there's no way you're going to be able to accomplish those. If their backbone stays stiff, and they already understood ahead of time that this was going to be very costly for them, but that they had calculated, this was in the New York Times just days before, that they have calculated that fighting a war with the U.S. was less risky than submitting to the U.S. that again was another signal that they had made this decision to go. And now, so far, that's exactly what they had done. And they are paying a price. And there's no doubt that there's been profound destruction of their armed forces, of their senior leaders, of course, their political and military, and definitely their military infrastructure's taken a beating. But it's this, I'm pretty sure you and I did talk about this. They have these underground facilities throughout the country, and they have the ability to withstand a lot of this for an extended period of time, but we don't. That's the key issue here. I said that we had maybe 4 or 5 days of high intensity flight. Maybe we could stretch that out to a couple of weeks if you're judicious in the use. But then what? If the other side doesn't capitulate, you're in real trouble. And now then that's where it looks like we are. There's reports out just in the last few hours that President Trump is saying, hey, maybe we can have a ceasefire. They're asking me for it, which is got to be complete BS. There's no way they would ask for it. Not now, not after their Ayatollah has been assassinated. That's the last thing they're going to do is ceasefire under those conditions. Otherwise, he would have been taken to secure location. Evidence suggests that he knew he was going to be assassinated, and I think willingly sacrificed his life to be used as a martyr because he didn't go to a protected place. He stayed where everyone knew where his compound was so that when the strike came in, he was killed. That's what it looks like happened intentionally, and now that result looks like it's having a situation to where it's not causing the backbone to quiver, but it's actually consolidating support behind the regime and throughout the Shia world. There's lots of protests going on around the world in support of the Iranian side because of the sacrifice of the Ayatollah. So I think it has been a profound, and I mean, to say a miscalculation is bad because that almost implies that you thought maybe it was going to be good, but what you base it off of, you thought it was going to work, but it didn't. This was well known ahead of time that unless the other side just quit and everything in the world said they wouldn't, and you went ahead anyway, that was a profound error. So, yeah, I think it's a major miscalculation.
Well, they didn't seem to predict that Iran would attack bases across the region. So Qatar, United Arab Emirates, Bahrain, Oman, Kuwait, Iraq, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, obviously Israel. But also, as you said, killing Khamenei, this is a very strange thing that they thought the government would collapse. And, this is in the Shia culture, the martyrdom is so deep. This is, something that would, as you said, get them riled up, but or consolidate. But as you said, but also in the Shia region, Shia communities across the region, you see from Iraq, Pakistan, Bahrain, they're all, taking to the streets in support of Iran, given this attack and killing of their religious leader. And I saw Trump giving a speech now in which he, argued that the Iranian army should put their weapons down and, their civilians should take to the streets. And like, does he really think this is what's going to happen now? It's just,
I really do. I think that he does think that. I think that in his mind, how a lot of people often do projecting. Whatever your values are and whatever you would do in a circumstance, you just project onto another actor. And I think that's what he did because he's thinking, yeah, if I came in and somebody from the stronger position came in and just started bombing the crap out of me and killing some people, I'd give up. I'd just say, yeah, let's roll in. So that's what's going to happen. And then he's like, that's kind of what happened with all those speedboats. I killed all these people and blew it up. Nobody did anything. I stole the leader from another country in Venezuela. Nothing happened. And they just rolled over the whole leadership in Venezuela. All you got to do is just show how tough you are, and then they'll just roll over. And I think that's what he thought was going to happen here, not recognizing the radical and profound differences between Venezuela and the Shia country of Iran, as you pointed out. So I think it was a big miscalculation. I will say the one area where I did not foresee properly, Iran had said that they would attack the bases of everywhere America was in the region. We took that seriously and bolstered up a lot of the air defenses, but I did not think that they would, from the beginning, also attack the civilian sectors of those countries. It appears to me that their message was, hey, you guys we're suffering from the U.S. We have since 2010 from Israel, and then starting with the assassination of Soleimani by the U.S. in 2019. We just been hit mercilessly, and you guys are protecting them. You guys are putting these bases in there, and they're using that against us. So it's time for you to feel some pain too. It looks like that's kind of what they said, kind of like a big FU in a big way. and there's been some really big strikes. I thought that they would not do that in an effort to say, hey, don't take action against us. This is just against the U.S. But it looks like they're saying, I'm just tired of getting pushed around, which is another indication. The reason I bring that up is because that shows that they're all in on this. And they're going to say, listen, we're even going to hit other regimes in the areas to see if we can put pain on the United States, on Israel, and on their backers in the region. And they're going to start suffering until everybody backs off. And then maybe we will too. Maybe they'll do some negotiation later. I don't think they're going to do it right now, though.